So there's an ancient method that exists that you can use to come up with great ideas. And that makes the process of being creative and creating things easy. I stumbled across this one day on accident, just on the internet. And ever since I started using it, my life has massively improved. So before we get into exactly what it is and how it works, there's a few other tips I want to give you in terms of coming up with good ideas and a few things to understand about creativity. So I remember when I first started YouTube, I'd always struggle to come up with video ideas. I'd be struggling so much. I remember there were times where I would literally spend the whole day just writing down in this notebook right here. Oh, there goes the church bell. Writing down in this notebook here, like all my different ideas and trying to just kind of come up with some good ideas that were useful, right? That were worth putting out there. And it's really just about connecting all the different knowledge points that you have, because I had so much knowledge, I had so much information that I wanted to share. It's just I didn't really know how to get it across in a way that was useful. So really, this makes a lot of sense if you're someone who's kind of going down that more entrepreneurial route. If you're a content creator, if you're growing your personal brand, your YouTube channel, you're doing any type of content marketing. But even if you're in a corporate job, right, and they need you to do innovation, this has helped me in the gym, like with just learning different exercises and finding different ways to combine things. This has helped me in my relationships. So every area of your life is better when you can actually come up with good ideas on a regular basis. Number one, if you're doing something or you're forced into something that you don't really like to do, your brain is automatically in a sort of defensive shutdown mode, right? If you're in college or you're in school right now, high school, college, whatever, and you're studying a course or some topic that you're not interested in, that you think is stupid, and it's like you don't even like the teacher, you just wish you weren't even in this class, you can't wait to get out, you're not even paying attention, bro, you're not actually going to have any good ideas around it, right? Because your brain isn't even interested in it in the first place. So you won't even get step one. You won't even get the basic idea of what's what's being taught, right? So the first thing is follow your curiosity. What are you actually curious about? Okay, I made another video about this a long time ago about how you can go about kind of finding what your passion is. But one of the main things is to basically not let social media, video games, all these high dopamine type activities interfere with you. So you can actually figure out what you're really interested in and curious about. So you need to follow what you're interested in and you're curious about, because that is what brings you down the rabbit hole of discovery, right? That's what brings you down that rabbit hole where you just, like for me, like sometimes I get down these rabbit holes where I'll be up, late at night past my freaking bedtime, just clicking on like article after article, learning about something, and you're going down that rabbit hole, like that Wikipedia, you're on Wikipedia looking for something, and then you just keep clicking more and more of the Wikipedia links, and it just brings you further and further down. Like that's the kind of interest and curiosity you want to have around just life in general, right? And that's how you're really going to come up with your best ideas. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, a lot of people will tell you, don't consume content. Don't do that. Don't consume content. Stop consuming content. I actually take a contrarian approach to this, but with a caveat, right? So yes, don't consume a lot of mindless content if you're trying to come up with creative, useful ideas, right? Now, if you're an entertainer, you might consume a lot of content that's entertaining and get your ideas from that. But the point is, it doesn't have to be educational content that you're consuming. I'm just saying, if you're someone like me who does kind of more educational type videos where you're trying to share what you're learning, then yeah, obviously immerse yourself in the educational space. So consume a lot of content, consume books, consume podcasts, consume videos, consume audiobooks, all around what you're interested in and what you're curious about. This is really going to help generate ideas, because let's be honest, bro. We know that there aren't really that many new ideas, right? The fundamentals are the same. The things I talk about, right, are it's just me presenting it. That's what's new, right? It's just the way that I present it and the different sort of connection points that I've made with my past experiences in life. But like the basis of the idea and the things I talk about is nothing new, right? People have been saying this for thousands of years. So find the books, find the podcasts, and those types of things that are educational and surrounded around like what you're interested in and your goals specifically. So what you're interested in, what you're curious about, and specifically those type of podcasts and books and videos that are related to your goals. Because a lot of times our drive comes from our problems, right? And so if we have a lot of problems, or we have certain problems, we're going to learn information so that we can fix those problems. So consume a lot of content but consume it in a way where it's not making you brain dead, right? It's not turning you into an idiot who has no attention span. I mean, I'm sure more than half the people have already clicked off this video because their attention span is just not there, right? And the reason why I'm saying don't just watch those super fast-paced, entertaining type videos is because those don't contain new ideas, right? Most of the time, those don't contain new ideas. And if they do, they're not really going to relate to what you're doing in terms of trying to achieve your goals or the educational space. It's more around entertainment. And so, yeah, if you're going to be an entertainer, it makes sense to consume a lot of entertaining content because you're going to learn from that. But as an educator, as someone who's trying to share ideas, someone who is trying to help other people, then your job is to educate yourself so that you can get new ideas, and new experiences, and then share them with other people. So that's why I say try to stay away from the very high dopamine, fast-paced type of content, because your brain isn't really going to retain the information from that. So focus more on books, podcasts, and focus more on like long form videos that actually teach you the things that you're interested in, curious about, and that relate specifically to your goals. So this is honestly the most important thing that I have found to come up with good ideas, to be creative, right? This is the most important tool that I've discovered for myself that works the best, right? And this is a tool that has been used for hundreds and thousands of years. Before we get into that though, I just want to say most people probably skipped to this point in the video. And if you did, then it just proves my point about how people have such low attention spans these days. And so you might want to go watch the beginning of this video, because I'm going to explain a bit how, you can go about fixing that and how that impacts your ability to come up with great ideas. So that being said, the method that I'm talking about here, okay, is called a commonplace book. Now, essentially what you need to do is you need to create one of these for yourself. This was really popular, okay, during the Renaissance period, but the Renaissance was not the first time this was used. This was used all the way back into the time of the ancient Greek philosophers, right? They didn't really call it a commonplace book back then, but essentially, they were still using this kind of format. People in the Renaissance really credited a man named Aulus Gellius, right? He was the one who really kind of made the first commonplace book that we have really in recorded history. And essentially what it is, it's a collection of all the different notes and ideas and quotes and just different things that you come across that you find interesting or unusual, and you just pack it into a book. And this is why it's so important, like I was saying, to consume the right type of content, because as you go throughout your week, what you can do is take all the interesting things you find, right? Take all the interesting things that you're reading, that you're seeing in podcasts, that you're hearing in podcasts, the different things you're watching, the videos that you're watching, and you take notes, right, on what's important to you, what's unusual, what applies to your goals, and you just put them all in this commonplace book as essentially just a place for you to brain dump anything you find interesting. So you can use something like this, right? You can use a book like this. What I like to do is I like to have I use Notion. So it's like an online, basically note-taking software that you can use. And I like to keep a digital commonplace book because it's easier to organize. It's easier to just kind of categorize everything. But you can also use your phone, right? You can just use your phone, just pull out your phone and use Notes, right? If you got Samsung Notes or Apple Notes, you can just use that and put all the things that you're interested in or that you find unusual in there. And this is really important because people like Leonardo da Vinci use this method, right? 500 years ago, Leonardo da Vinci had his own commonplace book, and you can go online, you can see some of the sketches. I'll throw a few up here, but this is where, a lot of the creativity comes from and the great ideas kind of stem from, because what you do is you take all these ideas, right? And you can have them all in one place, and then you can use them later for reference, because our brains can only store so much information, right? You're going to hear, all these different notes and different ideas and things, but you can't really recall all of those. So the commonplace book is a place for you to put all that information, and then in the future, you can use those separate ideas that you've collected and combine them together. So people like Leonardo da Vinci use this, and I think we all agree that Leonardo da Vinci was one of the most creative people to ever have existed, right? If you go through and look at the work that he did, it's insane. And he had the same sort of method of having a book where you've got different sections, right? And you're just throwing anything you find unusual or interesting into those sections. And then he would, take those ideas. And if you go through a book, let's say you just put it all in a journal or a notebook like this, you can go through that later and kind of take different pieces and put them together. Isaac Newton is another one who had a commonplace book, right? People like John Locke had a commonplace book. There's so many great figures in history who had commonplace books. And it just makes sense if you think about it, because you're essentially taking all the information that you learn up here and you're putting it into something else so you can reference it later, right? And it's also nice to get it out of your brain and onto paper or like a digital one, because then you're not like still thinking about it and you're not letting it take up space in your brain that you could be using for something else. So I really think that this is a method that, the ancients used. The ancient Greek philosophers, they would do this. People like Aulus Gellius, who really kind of had and created the first like well-known commonplace book, right? I believe that was somewhere between 100 and 200 AD. So that's like literally thousands of years ago, right? 1,000+ years ago, people were using this method and they were using it to become creative. People like Leonardo da Vinci, who 500 years ago had his own commonplace book, and you can see the things that he created. You can see the ideas that he had coming out onto paper, right? And that's how you can really become so creative, because essentially, imagine over the week, if you had 50 different ideas, right? You have 50 different ideas, and throughout the week, you put them all into your commonplace book, right? You put them into your notes folder. Let's say you've got it on your phone. You just write notes for the week, right? And you put all the things that you're learning into there, and that's your commonplace book. And at the end of the week, you can take those 50 different ideas and look at what you've learned, and you can combine those together. Let me give you an example of this. This past week, okay, on Sunday, is usually when I kind of schedule out a bunch of things. So what I did was went into my commonplace book. Okay, I've got the commonplace book and I've got everything noted out. I looked over this past week of what I learned, okay? And I started with this process I learned from this other podcast I watched. This is another thing, is from other podcasts. If you watch like long form podcasts and videos, you can actually get ideas that help you come up with better ideas. It's weird, but like you can get ideas about how to like come up with better ideas. So in this podcast, he was talking about this thing called recombination. Okay, so recombination is when you take two different ideas, right? You got one idea here, and you put them together in a way that makes sense and is useful for other people. See, creativity, the way I see it, is creativity isn't just about coming up with random shit, right? I could come up with random shit all the time, but if it's not useful to you watching this video right now, and there's nothing within it that's useful, it's just going to be like, okay, this guy's just coming up with random shit and it makes no sense. So you have to be creative in the sense of recombination, right? Combining different ideas together, but it also has to make sense enough and be useful enough that it's worthwhile. Like if you just like take this pen and mash it together with a light bulb, that doesn't really do anything, right? That's not very like useful or helpful to anyone. But if you were to, before this pen existed, if you were to take this cylinder and then combine it with the, whatever the hell this thing is, and then put this little hook on it so you could put it in your pocket or whatever, and then you put the ink inside it, all of a sudden, all those different ideas and elements become useful because it turns it into a fucking pen. So that's the idea. The idea is your commonplace book is where you store all your ideas, okay? And then what you want to do is every week, look through all the ideas that you've collected. Look at all the important and things that you're interested in, curious about, and that you mark down, and combine those together, look through them, and try to make the connection points between those ideas in a way that's useful to yourself or to other people. And that is a great way to come up with new ideas. And that's what I've been doing recently. That's my method. And I take all those different things, combine them together, and then apply it towards, something within the self-improvement space. So for, when we talk about self-improvement, self-development, improving our lives, it usually has to do with, health, wealth, or relationships. So you find ideas within those buckets and you combine them together into something that's useful for somebody, and then you can create. I've come up with some of my best ideas, and I've heard a lot of people say this, not just me. Come up with a lot of different ideas that were useful, creative, kind of just popped in my head, and I was like, whoa, that's actually a good idea when I'm walking. Okay. And specifically for me, it happens when I'm out walking in nature. Now for you, it could be in some other area. It could be walking on the beach. It could be walking in the mountains. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But for me, just walking, and specifically walking in nature, it could be in the woods. It could be, on a beach somewhere, it could be up a mountain, doesn't matter. Just doing that and not listening to headphones or anything like that is really helpful for me coming up with different ideas. Because for me, I definitely have this feeling of my brain is able to relax in this way as I'm walking through the woods and hearing all the sounds of nature. And it starts almost making these connection points between all these different ideas that I've had and all these different things that I've learned. It starts to make those connection points. So I would recommend giving that a try. Go out into the woods, take a walk, even down the street if you have to. But the thing about it is, as I brought this up in my other video that went viral, the no headphones video, which a lot of you subscribe from, was when you start to interfere in that process by putting on headphones and distracting yourself, it's going to make the process more difficult. At least it does for me. Okay, maybe for you it doesn't. I know it's a hot topic, but just give it a try, bro. Just go outside, take a walk in nature without listening to music, without listening to things, and just let yourself sort of submerge in all the information and knowledge you already have. Another great thing you can do is have conversations with people, right? Having conversations with people is great because it really kind of brings up different ideas that you could have, right? So just write down maybe 3 different people that you want to have a conversation with. Okay, write down 3 different people you want to have a conversation with that day and have a conversation with them and see if that brings up any new ideas for you. Because talking to other people is basically a whole nother, how we just talked about having the commonplace book. If you can talk to another person, that's essentially a whole nother brain that's absorbed all this other information. So you now making connection points between those 2 different brains has a lot of ideas and a lot of knowledge and things that you can share, right? So that also stirs up a lot of different, possibilities for creativity and having better ideas. And last one I'm going to say is when you're in the gym. For me, the gym is another place where I think it has something to do with movement, because from that last study that I linked, there was a lot that had to do with your creativity being enhanced by moving, right? And so for me, in the gym is another place where I notice that happens. So yeah, let me know down below if you guys have come up with any ideas on, how you come up with better ideas. That's for me, that's all I got for right now. And that's what I do. And it seems to be working pretty well. If you want more help with any of this, check out the links in the description. We do have the community, right? Like-minded guys ambitious guys like you who want to improve their lives, and we're all in there talking to each other. So feel free to drop in, have a conversation, and hopefully I'll see you in there.